Yeah, we heard that. It's a big thing.
Was a little bit better than most.
Thank you.
This is like.
We like that. Like, is that what the keyboard signal? Yeah. Oh, you can leave it there.
Evening, everybody. Let's get going. Let's start with an introduction from our interpreter.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Andrea with the Community Language Cooperative. We're going to practice language justice. We're going to have simultaneous interpretation in English and in Spanish. And once we turn on the interpretation, you're going to see a globe at the bottom of your screen if you're on Zoom, or 3 little dots or what it says more, and you'll find the interpretation function there. Please remember to speak conversationally and remain muted when you're not speaking, and speak very close to your microphone when it's your turn to speak. Hola a todos, soy Andrea con la Community Language Cooperative. Vamos a practicar la justicia del lenguaje el día de hoy y tendremos interpretación simultánea en inglés y en español. Una vez que aprendamos la interpretación, si estás en Zoom, vas a ver un globo que va a aparecer en la parte inferior de tu pantalla o 3 punticos donde dice más y ahí encontrarás las opciones de interpretación. Recuerda hablar a un paso conversacional y muy cerquita a tu micrófono cuando sea tu turno de hablar. And we can begin interpretation now.
Thank you. All right, we'll call to order this work session of the Sheridan City Council for July 22nd, 2024. It's 6:02 p.m. and we have all council members present. The first item we're talking about tonight is the housing needs assessment with EPS.
Right. Well, thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, Council. Thank you for the opportunity to come in tonight and talk about this project that we recently kicked off last week. So as some of you may know, we've been trying for a number of years to get a housing needs assessment going for the city. We've had some kind of start and stop efforts. We've looked at some grants. We've talked to some different consultants, but for one reason or another, we've never really been able to move the project forward. So very excited tonight to have EPS on board and Rachel and her team. Some of the things we've struggled with Inglewood and Littleton both already having completed housing needs assessments. They're normally kind of our partners on projects like this that are a little bit more regional in scale. So that was another thing that we were kind of dealing with. And then this May, the state recently passed some laws related to housing needs assessments. So by December of 2026, there's going to be a requirement that all local jurisdictions have a completed housing needs assessment. So we felt like we really needed to get something going. I want to emphasize tonight, you have a copy of the scope of work and the draft schedule, which I'll pass out here in a second. So this effort that we're going to talk about is for the data analysis portion only. So what we looked at with this project was wanting to get something going quickly, especially with the state law coming into effect. There's going to be kind of a rush on consultants, and we want to make sure that we're staying on top of what we need to as a city. So we're going to start with a data analysis portion only that'll look at kind of the data that's in that proposal. And we're going to talk about strategies and implementation and all sorts of other items as kind of a phase 2. So we're going to be looking at that second phase next year, and we'll kind of be working that into the city's budget process this year. So really tonight, there's no council action on this item. We just kind of wanted to introduce EPS, talk about what we're going to be doing here. And we're going to talk even more on August 19th at our joint study session with Planning Commission. So I did send out a calendar appointment for that. So if you haven't already, please respond to that or let Jenna or myself know if you're unable to attend, just for attendance and food tracking purposes for dinner that evening. So with that, I will turn it over to Rachel to kind of say hello and talk about the project a little bit more.
Thanks.
Great, thank you. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. So thank you for that introduction. I'm Rachel Shindman. I'm a vice president with Economic and Planning Systems, or EPS, in our Denver office. So just up the road, but appreciate the opportunity to join you virtually tonight. As you'll see in the scope, we have some in-person work sessions in our future. So we'll be spending some good quality time together. A little bit of background on EPS. Our firm is 41 years old now. I think last year was our 40th anniversary. The Denver office has been around for nearly 25 years. And housing is one of our core practice areas. So we do housing needs assessments, policy and strategy studies, an array of other housing work throughout the Denver metro area, the state, and the country. But one of our favorite places to work is our backyard. And so we're really familiar with a lot of the housing challenges in the area, a lot of the intricacies of how we can and cannot get things done. Andrew mentioned, the recent state legislation. So we've been tracking that for a while. And while the guidance hasn't been published yet on what those needs assessments will entail, we'll be keeping track of that and making sure that this effort will be compliant with whatever the state comes out with. And we've been doing these types of analyses for a long time, so we have a sense of what those core components are. And so tonight we really wanted to just give an overview of what the process will look like, what some of the outcomes might be, and just lay the groundwork for what to expect. And so, as was mentioned, the city hasn't had a housing needs assessment done before, and so we're really looking to lay the groundwork of what is the housing context right now. A lot of people will know it, walking the streets, driving the streets, understanding what the local context looks like, but having the data to outline that really helps give a foundation to build potentially some policies or strategies, or understand what the core needs are moving forward. And so we'll be looking at trends, we'll be looking at current conditions, we'll be looking at potential future conditions. We'll be looking at both population and employment, because in a place like Sheridan, those groups don't necessarily overlap. And so we need to understand what both of those groups and trends look like and how those impact housing needs in the city. And so who's living here, who's working here, and where, if any, is there overlap there? And what does that mean for housing? And then looking at opportunities and constraints for new development. So obviously, there's infrastructure constraints, there's environmental constraints, and then there's also some opportunities. And then, as Andrew mentioned, this phase of work is really looking at the data piece. So, who's living in the city, who might live in the city if there was different housing options available. What does affordability look like in the city? Is that the same or different for ownership housing and rental housing? Is there a lot of cost burden? Who is cost burden? So, paying more than 30% of their income on housing. And what does that mean for housing in the city moving forward? And so at the end of this phase of the effort, we're looking to have a really good sense of where we're meeting housing needs and where we might not be meeting housing needs, and what we should expect moving forward into the future. And then phase 2 will answer the question of, well, what do we do about it? Which is always the question that comes out of the data. And so that's not scoped in this piece of the effort, but it's not forgotten. And so that is coming in a phase 2. We will be answering the so what, and what do we do? But as Andrew mentioned, we really wanted to just get this kicked off and get it started. So as you'll see in the scope, we have a data work session scoped in there. So what we like to do is get our hands in a bunch of data, start seeing what's going on, start, telling the story, and then sit down with you all and really dig into it, answer any questions, make sure that everyone understands, can answer questions that come from anyone else in the community, and then determine what additional data or analysis we might need to round out the effort. And then we'll have a needs assessment document that will have all of that data and analysis, and will provide the foundation for the phase 2 strategy piece. And so really tonight, we just wanted to provide that overview. As Andrew mentioned, we kicked off the project last week, so we're digging into data this week and jumping in and getting started. And then just open it up to any questions that you all might have about the process, about the outcomes, any questions or comments on that.
Thank you. What data do you use, and how much of that do you gather yourself, and how much is from other sources?
Great question. So the details of it will differ by community and by needs. We always start with the census. As some people know, since 2020, the census data has gotten a little bit different. They changed how they deal with privacy, and so especially for small areas, we get some funny numbers sometimes. But we also use Esri, which is a data that we purchase, and so it's also based off the census, but they use a number of other data sources to just make it more workable, especially for smaller areas. We use DOLA, any of the data that they publish, because that's usually been ground truthed in a lot of communities. And then we'll use, building permit data, parcel data from the assessor to help give like the literal lay of the land. In some cases, we'll do surveys in the community. We haven't included that in this effort. And then we'll also, as you'll see in the scope, pull data for surrounding areas, because trends in a vacuum don't mean a whole lot. So let's say, for example, I'm not saying this happened, but let's say the city doubled in population. Everyone goes, oh no, we doubled in population. Well, if everyone else quadrupled in population, then it's still a big increase, but we're actually below regional growth. And so we'll definitely be looking at Littleton and Englewood, potentially the county, potentially Denver, just to understand, how these communities fit into the broader Denver region, just to help put some data pieces in context, answer some of those so what questions and what does it mean. But at a base level, we're really focused on census and DOLA data. And then for the real estate and market piece, we'll usually try and partner with a realtor to look at home sale data, because that really helps get us a fine-grained understanding of what's happening in the home sale market. And then rental data is the hardest thing to get. So with purpose-built rentals, which is just, something that a developer built and is typically run by a property management company, there's secondary data that we purchase for that. And then we'll often also just talk with property managers to get that information on, rents and vacancies and overall trends. So a lot of different sources. We like to use multiple sources and then see if they tell us the same story. And we like it when they do, and when they don't, we go and ask more questions.
Okay. Anybody else have questions? Go ahead, City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Rachel, hi, Devin Granberry, City Manager. We haven't met yet. Looking forward to working with you, though. I'm really glad that you mentioned the other cities with Englewood, Littleton, the county, and I'm sure that Andrew has made you aware. So the city works with those other two municipalities in the Tri-Cities group, and we've been having focus around homelessness issues over the past several years, and now that group is looking to pivot towards housing issues and seeing how we can address it. The other two cities already have completed housing assessments. And one of the things I would like to see that is in the mix, is making sure that we and you are aware of what they've already done in their assessments, so that when those three cities get together, and along with the county as well, and talk about needs, that we can talk the same language. Does that make sense? That you're aware of what they've already done, so that we can make sure that we're able to meld our data with their data to then really get into some good definitions of how do we as a Tri-Cities group address some of these housing issues.
Yeah, that's a great point. And we definitely talked about the homelessness initiative on our kickoff call. But as part of the beginning of our process, we look at sort of existing plans and documents and policies. And so we can weave in those other needs assessments that have been done for those other communities, to your point, just to make sure that we have a sense of what they're already working on or looking to work on. And then to the speaking the same language, for sure. A lot of times housing needs assessments will result in sort of gaps or housing goals broken out by ownership and rental housing by affordability level. So percent of AMI, or the area median income. In this case, we're also potentially looking at market rate housing. We know there hasn't, particularly for multifamily or apartments, there hasn't been a lot of new market rate development. And so looking potentially at demand or need for that as well. And so looking across the whole spectrum. But that's a really great point, and we'll definitely be sure to ensure that all these plans can talk to each other and work together.
That's great. I appreciate that.
And I think it said something in here about providing an analysis of what, how do I want to say this? How much housing we have at each level of affordability. Is that correct?
Yes. So, the nature of that analysis depends on the data available. But typically what we'll do is we'll look at the income distribution, typically by owners and by renters, and then look at what housing cost is affordable to those households. So using the 30% of income metric, and then look at what the costs of housing in the community are. So obviously we can't do a one-to-one comparison of every household and how much they specifically are paying for housing, but looking at the distributions. So if the distributions line up, then we have a good sense that there's, the right distribution of housing by cost in the community. If say 40% of the population can only afford, let's say, up to $2,000 a month, but a huge, let's say only 10% of the housing costs up to that, then we have that mismatch. And so that's the type of analysis that we'd be looking to do.
Right. Anybody else have questions?
I have a quick question. I'm Jay Whitaker, Councilman Jay Whitaker. What will we get for $5,000 of council engagement?
It's a great question. So we'll be doing at least one in-person work session. And so the length of time of that is dependent on, all your schedules and meeting agendas and all of that. That's also prep time for that. And then post-meeting sort of documentation and any follow-ups, and sort of taking the input that we received in the meeting and moving it forward. And the budget is an estimate. So that's typically about the number of hours that we, in our experience, have seen that level of engagement take. And then to create the budget, it's the number of hours by the hourly billing rate per employee. That said, the budget is a not to exceed amount. So this phase one of the needs assessment will not be more than what the budget is. So even if, if the council engagement takes more time, We're still doing everything else that we said that we would do. But typically, to answer the question, it's the preparation, it's the actual meeting time, and then any follow-ups.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anything else you wanted to share? I don't see any more questions from council right now. Anything from staff? No?
No, nothing else from me. I just wanted to thank Rachel for being here tonight. We're very excited to get working with you and your team.
Great, thank you all. We're excited as well.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you.
I guess Andrew's staying up there because he's next anyway.
I think
Community
so.
development, maybe a report.
Yes, well, once again, thanks for having us tonight and allowing us to kind of come in and talk about what we've been working on for the past 6 months. So we last did a report to council back in January. We've been staying pretty busy. You've heard about one of the projects we just kicked off most recently, but there's a lot of other things going on in the background. So just wanted to get everybody up to speed on that. And then as usual, going to just kind of walk through the memo that was prepared. And we had a lot of help and support that went into this with both Ari and Nathan and also Mel, our sustainability coordinator. So we have them here tonight. If there's a specific question that comes up, Mel was not able to join us, but just if you have any questions as we go through, let me know because it'll be hard to remember by the end of it. So just thought I'd kick off with some of our current development cases. So we have a couple in right now, not all that much going on with current cases. I think the most exciting one that's come in is the Chick-fil-A site development plan. So we've been hearing about this for a couple of years. I think even before COVID, they were talking about doing some reconfiguration to their site to just make it function a little bit better, especially during their lunch and dinner rushes. So they finally submitted. And, it looks like a pretty simple project, but when you start looking at where the methane vents are located and all of the easements over at River Point, it does get pretty complicated. So we're going to be working with them. I think we are in the process of sending them their first round comments back today. So excited to see that finally come in. In terms of our pre-planning applications, we really saw, in 2022 and 2023 with the interest rates rising that our development activity really cooled off. I'd say the first half of this year, we're starting to see it come back to life. So we're kind of back to where I think we should be, which is about, one pre-planning a month. Though I will say when we pulled this list, we did 4 pre-plannings in January. So it was really, front loaded this year. We had a lot of interest right after the first of the year. It's been fairly quiet the past couple of months. But we did get in a pre-planning application for 4095 South Federal. That is the vacant lot directly north of City Hall. So we just had their meeting last Thursday. The applicant for that project is an AutoZone that is interested in building one of their stores here in Sheridan. So that would be a 7,300 square foot retail building. As a reminder, AutoZone, they don't do any sort of like vehicle maintenance or repairs. They're purely a retail store. So they are a permitted use under both the current PUD that was rezoned to back in 2022 and would have been a permitted use under the previous code as well. So it's just a retail store. We're going to be working with them on some of their design and landscaping to really meet or exceed all of those requirements in there as well. So if that moves forward, I think it will be really nice for the community. In terms of our building department, couple big permits right now. What you'll see is a lot of permits down at River Point. So we're having a lot going on down there. Our Starbucks is closed through the end of the month for their major remodel. We also have Teriyaki Madness and Dollar Tree that are working on their respective stores. So hopefully getting those open before the end of the year. Another project I listed here, it's not a land use case itself, but we did complete the Block 3 alleyway paving project. And that project was tied to a couple of different rezonings and developments along that block. So it's really nice to see that the alley's done, the public improvement has been completed, and most of the development has kind of been wrapped up on that block as well, with the exception of the boarding house property, which is still kind of pending. And then obviously our biggest construction project right now is the Bonsai Apartments on South Federal. So been over there for some site visits. It's really coming together quickly. They are on track for leasing this fall and then having the development fully occupied by the end of the year. So it's been really fun to see that come together. In terms of our grant applications that we've been working on, so, starting off with our two big exciting ones that we submitted to Arapahoe County Open Spaces. I actually went this morning to the Board of County Commissioners website. They have all of the grants reviewed and on the consent agenda for tomorrow morning. So I was mostly just looking to see, did our two projects make it on the list or not, which they both did. So we're very excited about that. But they are also the top ranked project each in their respective categories. So
All right.
the standard grant for the trail widening was #1 for standard grants. And our planning grant for the former Carroll's Pub site came in as #1 as well for
Wow.
planning. So,
Awesome.
huge thanks to Ari and Nathan for
Yeah.
working through all of that. You don't put together a grant applications for $750,000 without a lot of help. We had a lot of help with South Suburban as well, pulling documents together, budgets, timelines, all of that. So
Excellent.
assuming everything goes well at the county tomorrow morning, yeah, that's kind of where we're at on those two. Very excited to get both of those projects moving. For the Bear Creek Trail widening, just as a reminder, that's converting the current asphalt trail surface to concrete and then making a number of safety improvements over there to put up railing and just make it a lot safer than it is right now. And that is the first project of over 20 that we kind of developed through that Bear Creek Trail study. So we are doing the design work for that project right now, which is great to hear that we're getting construction money, hopefully here in August, to keep that one moving. And then our other one for the Bear Creek Trailhead planning, that was a $150,000 request to begin kind of the public engagement and preliminary design work for that. So we've actually been interviewing some different landscape architecture firms and engineers that we feel like might be a good fit for the project to just kind of gauge their interest. So just let council know if there is a park that you really like somewhere in Denver or somewhere across the US that you visited. We're kind of looking at some of more like national firms for this. A lot of them have offices here in Denver as well. So if you think of any that you'd like us to talk to, we're more than happy to reach out and just talk about, looking at a proposal and seeing if it's a good fit. So that's been going really well. For our TAP grant for the Mary Carter Greenway widening, we issued the request for qualifications for that, and those are due on Thursday. So hopefully by Thursday, we'll be getting in some proposals to take a look at to be able to come back to council in August for a contract for the design services for that one. And then once that's awarded, it'll be about a year of design before we're able to move into construction. One of our other big grants, the City Hall EV chargers. So since they've been open now since last October, we've had a couple of quarterly reports come in. So we've actually had some data to compare, quarter by quarter, kind of what's going on out there. And it's all looking really good. So we're seeing much more usage and engagement with the chargers. So we're seeing an 80% increase in the number of transactions, almost a 600% increase in the revenue and transaction fees collected, and then almost a 400% increase in kilowatt hours charged. So we're definitely seeing more customers using the chargers. They're staying longer. They're, more fully charging up their vehicles, which is really great to see. And just anecdotally, we're definitely seeing kind of daily usage out there, which is good. So not sure where it's going to plateau, but we haven't seen it plateau yet. So yeah. All right. Any questions so far? No, that's
Hey, Andrew, is there any way to tell where people are from that are using those chargers? I don't know if there's any way to. I'm just wondering where, people are coming from that are using the charge. I don't know if there's any way we can even really know that.
No, not from the transaction data.
Yeah.
So we get a report monthly and then quarterly that kind of, has very basic information about the customer, but nothing about where they're coming from. There's some proprietary data services out there. There's a group called Placer AI. They do these sorts of things with the geolocated services, but it's something you have to pay for.
Mm.
But it is great to see all the reports coming in and kind of see how long people are spending out there. So we're getting some of that like high level data, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. In regards to the
Yeah.
bonsai,
Uh-huh.
are they still having the ribbon cut in on the 1st, or has it been pushed back?
For bonsai?
Yeah.
No, we don't have, or to my knowledge, we don't have a ribbon cutting set up yet. So
Okay.
So yeah, we will let you know as soon as we have something scheduled. A lot of it, it's kind of tricky with that project specifically. If it's going to be completed, it's going to be completed in phases. So they're going to start moving people into the first building once it's completed. And then there's going to be a lag where people are moving in as there's still construction going on. So we've kind of had this, conversation of like, when do you cut the ribbon? Is it when the first people move in, or do you kind of wait for everybody to be there so that it's more of like a, community feel, not a half-finished construction site, but
Yeah.
we're still going back and forth on that, and we haven't really picked a date
Okay,
yet.
I thought I saw an email that said it was gonna be on the first.
Mhm.
Yeah, that may have been from the leasing, like the management office,
Okay.
which I think they were really optimistic. But on the construction side of things, yeah, not on the first.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to ask because I was I was gonna be going down there, so wanted to make sure.
Good question. Yeah, we'll send out calendar appointments and we'll make sure
Okay.
everybody's aware.
Do you know if we'll be able to do a tour at some point? Either one, I don't know if it has to be in conjunction with the ribbon cutting or whatever, but maybe.
Yeah, we
another time.
definitely want to set up some tours. I think the challenge right now is, even though that first building, I mean, they're starting to do drywall
Mhm.
and everything in that first building, getting into the site is really tricky because they have not done their paving
Yeah.
for the entryway and like the acceleration deceleration lanes. So yeah. I only go over there in Jess's truck because our EV is not going to
It's
be able
rough
to
in
handle
there, huh?
the surface as it is currently. But yes, we'd like to do some tours with city staff, definitely public safety, council. And I'm sure they'll want to do that as well and just kind of open it up to the community. So. Cool. All right.
Before you move on to the next sections, Andrew, I had just one or two real quick things. Just going back to the very first item, the Cherry Hills Village, and this is just for maybe some of our newer council members might not be aware. The Cherry Hills Village does locate their public works maintenance facility here in Sheridan, because they could not find a location to do it in the village.
Mhm.
So they've been there, Andrew,
Since
3-4 years?
2017.
2017. Well, yeah,
7
yeah.
years.
So it's been even a little longer. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So that was just an FYI in case you're looking at that going, what the heck? Why is Cherry Hills Village? And that's why. And they've been a great neighbor down there, and they've done a really good job in fixing up, the property that they took over up there and helping out with that. So we're glad to have them there.
I think the neighbors really like it because
Yeah.
Quincy down there is not a public right of way. So the city of Sheridan does not plow it, but they store all their plows at the end of the road. So anytime it snows, it's a
Gets
well plowed
plowed.
road. Yeah.
Nice.
The other one just really quickly was, where did it go? Just kind of another FYI, the 4384 South Federal, the methadone clinic, just so that council is aware, we do have, are they open yet, Andrew?
The grand opening's tomorrow.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah. And there's a link, real quick, there's a link to the grand opening invite on there. So if you want to RSVP and attend that, it's in the packet.
Right. Okay, thank you. Just in case you get any questions or have any issues, and that's one of those uses that's a use by right stated, by the state. We don't have control over that one way or the other, whether we think it's good or bad use there. It's a use that they can do. And just FYI to be aware of that in case you get any questions about that. And I think it's going to be one of those, unless you're not going to know what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify those. Thank you, Andrew.
Definitely. Yeah.
Are you
Cool.
still going through any? Or is that?
Yeah, I'll go back to grants and talk about our Federal Boulevard study a little bit. So just an update on that project. It's been kind of quiet the past few months. There's some data analysis and recommendation formulation kind of being done in the background. But we did have a really big milestone on April 1st where we had city staff, Michael Baker International, which is our consultant. We met with CDOT and Stantec, which is CDOT's consultant, at the Region 1 headquarters to just go over both studies. So as a reminder, we're doing our study that was funded through DRCOG. I'd say we're over 50% completed with that. But CDOT is also doing kind of their own study of the corridor right now through Sheridan, specifically looking at a repaving project that's going to be coming up here pretty quickly. So really the purpose of this meeting was just to make sure that kind of everybody's in agreement between the two studies on what some of the recommendations are. And then with CDOT's repaving project, they are looking to go into design for that project next year and then hopefully construct the year after in 2026. So their goal, the base model is they're going to kind of repave Federal through Sheridan. Our goal, is to go in and see if we can get some more crossings, some bus stop amenities, and some of these other improvements made kind of at the same time. So everything that we're seeing so far, I think everybody's in agreement on what's being proposed, which is really good. So we're not at this point proposing something that CDOT doesn't like, and that makes it a lot more likely that they're going to be able to help us out with some of those improvements when they do their project. And then our next big step with that is in August, we're going to try to get a meeting together kind of with the same folks again to talk about budget for the next 2 years to see if they're, what the budget capacity looks like between the two entities and kind of where we're landing on some of these projects and if Sheridan could participate in that in some way. So more to come on that here in August. Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
on that one, remind me of the extents of what CDOT's looking at there.
So I think they're looking from 285 south to Bellevue.
Right, okay.
So it doesn't, our study covers, pretty much like Floyd down to Clay Street. So
Right.
Federal within Sheridan. We're looking at the context kind of up to Dartmouth and then down to Union,
Right.
just for context, but obviously we can't really have a whole lot of say in, what goes on in those parts of the corridor. And then they're just looking from 285 down to Bellevue. So
okay.
it's repaving. And the other thing I forgot to mention was a center median study. So they're looking at potentially adding center medians to Federal.
And is Denver's currently looking all the way down to Dartmouth, correct?
Yeah, so
I'm not sure where
Denver-
that is right now. I'm not-
Yeah, Denver did a Federal Boulevard study, I think back in 2017. So their study was pretty high level, kind
Right.
of conceptual. A lot of that had to do with the BRT or the bus rapid transit
That's-
system that they're looking to implement. So my understanding of that project is that DOTI in Denver, the Department of Transportation Infrastructure, was really leading the BRT side of things. And then at some point, CDOT has gotten way more involved on the BRT system. So I went to a public open house meeting a couple of months ago and you walked in and you didn't really see Denver logos anywhere, but you saw CDOT logos everywhere. So I think CDOT is really, looking to be the
Hmm.
driving force on that as well.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a lot going on Federal
Mhm.
these days, but they've gotten some pretty big grants in Denver for that project.
Yeah.
So after the East Colfax BRT, it's definitely kind of next on the list and definitely moving forward. And then real quickly, that project, it would bring the BRT down Federal to Dartmouth and then over to the Inglewood City Center. So kind of goes through the north border of Sheridan, but not really through the center of Sheridan at all.
Right. Thank you.
All right. And then also on Federal, 3600 South Federal, which is now definitely the formerly known as Carol's Corner Pub building. Our two big updates for that project. In May and June, we were able to finally get all of the asbestos out of there and get the building demolished. So it is gone. And we've also been able to help out Medici Consulting Group and the construction workers over at Bonsai by allowing some temporary usage for their construction parking, which I think has been really beneficial to both groups. They have a safe place to park, kind of get everybody off of the construction site. And then we've been keeping the property activated. They do a really good job of making sure it's secured, cleaned up. We're not seeing the sort of illegal dumping issues that we have the past few years. So just trying to keep that going as long as we can, because I think it's been really helpful. It's also keeping all of those cars out of the neighborhoods, because if they weren't able to park there, they would just park right across the street. So yeah. And then on May 29th, Devin, Ari, and Nathan all did a site visit with Arapahoe County Open Spaces. So obviously that went really well for the #1 ranked project, but that sounded like a good site visit.
Yeah.
I take full credit.
Right. And then our last big grant that we're still working on is our Brownfields grant for Federal Boulevard with Denver and ULC. Really, the biggest update, we've had a couple of different conferences or trainings through that have been really fun to go to and hear about some of these other communities that have really leveraged these funds to make a lot of change in their community, which has been great. On June 20th, the site selection committee, which I sit on as Sheridan's representative, met to review a proposal for the Loretto Heights Arts Building. So if you're not familiar with that building, it is a vacant, it's kind of like an art studio building on the back side of the campus. It's actually kind of at a higher elevation even than the administration building, which is the tower that everybody sees. And it's kind of in disrepair right now. It's got a lot of challenges, much like our property over at Carroll's has a lot of asbestos and hazardous materials in it. So very excited. That project was funded by the committee, which is really exciting because they're going to be able to basically go in and do all of the studies and reports that we did for our project. And this was the first project that we funded in Denver through this grant. So the first two were in Sheridan. So we're excited that Denver finally has a project, and I think it'll be a really good one for them. ULC owns the property right now, so they're going to do all of those studies. And the second part of it, they're going to do some conceptual site planning for potentially affordable housing or some sort of partnership, you know, with another developer, or maybe they would do it themselves. We're not really sure yet. But yeah, it'll be really cool. They're looking at potentially evaluating mass timber for the site, which I think would be really exciting for all of Denver, because I'm not sure that we have a mass timber residential building anywhere in Denver right now. It's
I don't know what that means.
yeah, so what it is, it's where they take timber and they make it structural grade. So in place of using like steel and concrete beams, the wood and the lumber gets reinforced so that it can like support multiple stories. Which is exciting. So it's something that we're seeing. Scandinavia uses a lot of it. They're doing like high rises, like even over 10 stories with mass timber, and then a lot in the Pacific Northwest. So it's a very carbon friendly building material, especially compared to like steel and concrete, which are really carbon intensive. So they're going to at least ask the question and see if it would work or not. They're not committing to it, but they felt like it was, you know, something they should look into. So it'd be cool. The site itself, if you drive around Loretto Heights, I mean, it has like sweeping views of like the whole Southern Front Range. So it'd be a really cool building if they're able to put something up there. So that is it for grants. Grant section is getting longer by the day. Any questions about any of the grants I mentioned? Cool. And then just a couple of updates on some of our different planning projects. We did update the memo tonight with the current statistics for the COVID test distribution. So numbers keep going up there. We're distributing COVID tests at our front general government window here for free. So if you know of somebody that's looking for one, they don't have to spend $20 or $25 at the drugstore. They can come in and get some. Roots in Sheridan, we did provide a whole separate update presentation to council. I did want to point out in the packet on the last sentence there, I linked to all of the media hits that we got for that. So if you haven't seen those already, we were in CBS 4 Colorado, 9 News, and Westward all did pieces on the program. So really great if you haven't had a chance to look at those yet. Then our last big planning project, we're working on some air quality monitoring. So we're continuing with our kind of fixed site air quality monitors. And all of those are hyperlinks as well, so you can kind of go take a look at those. But we're really excited to announce is that the AirBeam checkout program partnership with Arapahoe Libraries is live. So you can go over to the Sheridan Library and check out a personal air quality monitor. It looks like a little Pac-Man ghost. It's about this tall. Really fun to kind of you know, set up on your desk. They're pretty much mobile. You could put them on a lanyard, so you could go for a walk with them. And so it's what we're trying to accomplish with that program is that more hyper local air quality monitoring. So, you know, we have the ones out in the city that kind of tell you what's going on with the ambient air quality, but these will tell you kind of what's happening where you live. So in your house, in your basement, in your garage, you know, on a walk down the street, which is pretty cool that we have this. We've also, Ari's been working with Arapahoe Libraries and some of our other partners, Arapahoe County Public Health, to create some instructional, educational, and informational materials So we don't want to just scare people and tell them that their air quality is bad. If that is the case, there's going to be some solutions in there that will kind of tell you, based on what you're seeing, here's how you might change things in your house or your apartment to make it be a little bit better. And there's going to be a kickoff event for that in August. So we'll kind of share that out once we have more information for that. And then just an update on our GIS stuff. Been doing a lot with that. We have had some changeovers with our GIS consultants. Northline GIS was purchased by IMEG earlier this year. So we've had kind of a changeover with the GIS analyst that we're using, but we had another meeting last week to kind of meet the new person. I think it's going to be great. We've got a couple of projects lined up. Still working through the Sheridan Sanitation District number 2 digitization. So that'll be really great once we have that all done. There's been some changeover at the Sheridan Sanitation District. So we actually have a meeting tomorrow to kind of get everybody back on the same page and keep that project moving forward. And then finally, kind of a new addition, we're going to have Mel provide some written reports through this format as well. So our sustainability spotlight this month, Mel kind of wrote up all of these bullet points. I think council is aware of most of them. Just wanted to remind everybody that her and Randy have been working with Year Out Energy and were successful in getting the $750,000 public building electrification grant, which will go a long ways to kind of improve our infrastructure here at City Hall in order to accommodate some new HVAC, hopefully at some point. So that is really exciting update there. And the other big update is we've launched our Sustainable Business Partnership Program with Inglewood. So what this is going to be like an affiliate program of the state program, which is a free program, kind of no cost to join. But you need to have a local staff member that can kind of help businesses with the one-on-one navigating the state's program and, going after different grants, tax rebates, and incentives. So to that end, we've hired a Green Business Program Coordinator. His name is Aiden. He'll probably be at Sheridan Celebrates if you don't see him before then. So definitely come over and say hi. But he's doing great. He's already met with a couple of businesses here in Sheridan. And we found out Western Metals is actually a member of the program. So even before we had the program in Sheridan, they were participating kind of at the state level. So it's great that we have somebody local that can kind of help them through things and get to, the next level of the program and make some improvements to their facility. And like I said, Mel would have been here tonight, but she is actually over at Inglewood City Council. They are doing an IGA this evening with the city of Littleton to support Aiden's position. So basically, if that all goes well tonight, Aiden will be working for all 3 cities as kind of the Green Business Program Administrator for basically the Tri-Cities area. And what this is allowing us to do is Sheridan is helping to support his position in addition to Inglewood, and now with bringing Littleton on board, we have like a full-time position for him, which is not really how it started out. So we're able to really provide, a good job for him so that we hopefully keep him around for a while to do some of this work. And then the last update that I just wanted to tack onto that was kind of through some of those efforts, we've been meeting with some of the economic development team over in Inglewood. And Nathan and I attended one of the Inglewood Chambers conversations and coffee last Friday. It was really great. It was at the new Inglewood History Museum on the 2nd floor of their city hall. And the exhibit right now is all about Cinderella City. So they have some really cool graphics. They have the Cinderella sign that's been restored. I learned a lot from it, so we'd highly recommend getting over there to check it out. It's going to be open 10 to 2 on Saturdays for now. So that is my update for this first half of the year. Happy to answer any questions.
It's a lot of exciting stuff in there.
Yes.
Those grants are
Keeping us
awesome.
busy.
I'm flowing.
Yes.
I wanted to ask about one that I haven't heard anything in a while on.
Okay.
It's the Santa Fe, the projects that came out of the Santa Fe.
The PEL study.
Yes.
Great question. So we actually, so both the PEL study has been wrapped up and the HAMS study, that was the study of 285. So those have both been wrapped up for a little while now. So there weren't really any updates. So we've kind of taken them off of this summary. I think going forward, we're just going to group them together as transportation planning stuff. And if anything happens with them, I have not really heard anything either on the 2 early action projects. Those are pretty much being led by CDOT at this point. So can't really, I mean, we can go back to the consultant and see if they know anything, but they're not under contract anymore. So we really just need to reach out to CDOT, but
I guess-
I'm happy to do that
I
because
guess
I have
when
the
I
same
hear
question.
early action, I thought maybe it would be more forthcoming than it has been. Yeah.
Well, early action for CDOT.
It means this decade.
Yeah.
CDOT's timeframe is much longer than kind of what we do around here. We think in terms of years. They, they talk about their plans and it's like looking at like end of decade, next decade and stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, I can definitely reach out to them and see if anything's happening.
Okay. Great. Well, I enjoyed that. A lot of good stuff in there. Anybody have any questions?
I had another one, and Ari, maybe you know this. It just made me think when we had a little update on the COVID home tests. Have we seen any reports on what we're looking at going into this fall and winter, what the COVID season might look like? And is it going to be good? Nothing's really out there. Okay.
Well, I do think we want to probably try to hold another vaccine clinic this fall.
Be great.
So
Always
I
good.
think we feel like that's a great way, to connect people to resources,
Yeah.
especially here at City Hall.
And that's beyond, we do everything with those too. It's not just COVID, that's flu and
Yeah.
all the others. Yeah. Shingles, right.
I guess.
Perfect. Well,
nothing.
as
thank you
always,
so
it's
much.
a
Yeah.
pleasure having the opportunity to provide an update. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have a chance for the review of our agenda items tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. And first I want to say thank you to Andrew and our community development staff. And you can see how busy these guys are and how much work they do and what a great job that they do. So appreciate it, guys. Let me jump. Okay. In your council packet this evening, we have two primary action items that we're going to have for you this evening. The first is a resolution adopting the revised City of Sheridan Employee Handbook. This is the handbook that we reviewed at the last session. What you have in your packet tonight is a clean version of what we reviewed at the work session, cleaned up of any typos and all that kind of stuff. So no changes in substance at all, just cleaning it up for an adoptable version. And then the second resolution is for adopting our second amendment to our trash amendment with Republic Services. Fairly straightforward. And again, I think that, no, let me clarify. There was one item in there that we did not discuss, and that had to do with $1,000 fee that Republic. Let me step back. It was for our e-recycling events, and associated with that was a provision in that contract that said that Republic would absorb the first $1,000 associated with that. They're no longer doing that with anybody, and so that was actually. Mark said, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. He and I had not discussed it, but that was the only change from what we discussed previously was that item. They're no longer offering that to any of their contactees or contactors, I said. So that's the only change from the version that you reviewed and what's in your packet tonight. Be happy to answer any questions about that, Mayor.
Anybody have questions? No. Okay, guess we're good. Do you want to give your manager report since we have a little time?
I'd be happy to. Okay. This one's for Councilmember Whitaker. The Oxford medians are striped.
I saw
Yay!
that.
All right.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Oh, you bet, you bet. And then associated with that, we should have sidewalk repairs have begun this week. for all the spots that we've had buckle through the city. They're doing one, I think it was today, in one of the neighborhoods, and I think by Wednesday they should be out on Federal. So those are the high profile ones that we have there. And we had another one pop down towards Bonsai or so. I think it was across the street. So we just seem to be those federal sidewalks just don't seem to enjoy the weather that we're having lately. But they will be all of they should be on they should be on Federal Boulevard by Wednesday and working on those. Let's see. The man who set that all up, Randy, as you saw, is retiring. If you haven't seen that in your emails yet, Randy will be retiring as of October 2nd. He was going to do it earlier. I twisted his arm and said he had to stay through Sheridan Celebrates. And he most graciously agreed to do that for us. I'll let you know when we have a time set up for, I'm sure we'll be doing a reception, all that kind of stuff. Randy, we will be, we just completed, I say we, our HR department, we just completed a review of the job description for the Public Works Director and have put together a nice 4-page, they call it a flip chart or something. It's a nice 4-page brochure. If you've seen those things that come out when cities are doing recruitments. And so very, very nice. We're going to be doing, this will be a national recruitment. We'll send it out far and wide, much further than our normal reach. So we'll have our HR folks do a little bit more than we usually do on that. That will hopefully be posted this week. And the time frame is to hopefully, if we get interest, I think we will, get somebody good on board. We might even be able to get them on, hopefully quick enough they can spend a little bit of time with Randy before he leaves. Have him show them around and talk with them a little bit, which would be ideal. The other HR thing we had our communications director, Amy Woodward. She resigned her position. And so we will hopefully have that posted up next week. Working on finishing up the same type of recruitment effort with our HR folks. We wanted to get the Public Works one out the door first. And then we'll be doing that one, like I said, hopefully by the end of next week, that'll be posted. And when those are complete, we'll be doing the same thing with the brochure. I'll make sure we send them to council in case you know of anybody who might be interested, and you'd be welcome to share that far and wide. I'm also going to be sending out some emails, so please check your emails. We need to set a goal setting date. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to hopefully get that out to you guys tomorrow, the next day, into your email. So please check your emails and get back to me so we can get a date set for our goal setting session. Kind of related along the same line, we have Andrew sent out an invitation for our joint city council Planning and Zoning Commission dinner. That's going to be on Monday, August 19th from 6 to 8 p.m. If you haven't seen that yet, again, please check your email. Andrew sent out a calendar invite for that one, so you can get that in there. We had at our Tri-Cities, I guess it was the steering committee meeting, correct, Mayor, that we had last week. And we were notified that the Severe Weather Shelter Network is having some financial difficulties. They missed a funding cycle, and looks like they were or are in danger of having to shut down. And those are the shelter networks for severe weather that serve our area, as well as Inglewood, Littleton. I'm not sure where else. I know it's the
They
Tri-Cities.
said Lakewood, or no, Arvada. But they said they had a location in
Yeah, they
Arvada.
do have a
Yeah.
location in Arvada.
Mhm.
Anyway, so they are looking for gap funding somewhere in the nature of $90,000 to $100,000. The Tri-Cities Homelessness Policy Committee has put together a subcommittee to kind of look at that issue and see if we have some options or what we might be able to do as the Tri-Cities along with the county. I did receive an email from the county late last week, and it said that it looked like that the county was going to have a proposal to be able to provide some funding, hopefully. I don't want to talk out of school until that's all confirmed here yet, but hopefully some good news. And what we really need to do is find some stopgap little stopgap funding until they can get their next grant cycle up and going. It was just, I think they had a change of staff or leadership over there, and the grant that they usually rely on, which is a state grant called the Emergency Services Grant. They missed the cycle, and that was their primary funding source. So we'll be working together as a Tri-Cities again to look at options, bring in the county and see what we might be able to do that. Because that's we absolutely have folks in the Tri-Cities area that take advantage of that network when we have especially cold weather events. So if you hear something along those lines, you can let people know or at least be aware that we are working towards trying to find a solution there. I think that's my update, Mayor. Be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Any questions right now? No. Okay, then we'll adjourn the work session at 7. And we will move into our regular meeting.
Vamos a seguir a nuestra.
We can start with an introduction from our interpreter. Thanks.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Andrea with the Community Language Cooperative. We're going to be providing simultaneous interpretation in English and Spanish so that we can practice language justice and we can hear and speak in the language of our heart. Once we turn on the interpretation, you're going to see a globe at the bottom of your screen where you're going to be able to select your preferred language. If you don't see the globe, you're going to see 3 little dots where it says more, and you'll find the interpretation functions there. Please remember to speak conversationally and very close to your microphone when it's your turn to speak. Hola a todos, soy Andrea con la Community Language Cooperative. Hoy vamos a practicar la justicia del lenguaje y tendremos interpretación simultánea en inglés y en español para que podamos hablar y escuchar en el idioma de nuestro corazón. Una vez que aprendamos la interpretación, vas a ver un globo en la parte inferior de tu pantalla donde vas a poder seleccionar tu idioma. Si no ves el globo, vas a ver 3 punticos donde dice más o more y ahí encontrarás las funciones de interpretación. Recuerden hablar un paso conversacional y hablar muy cerca a su micrófono cuando sea su turno de hablar. Thank you. We can begin interpretation now.
Thank you. I'll call to order this regular meeting of the Sheridan City Council for July 22nd, 2024. The time is 7:01 p.m. I'm having trouble signing in. Anybody else?
No, yeah, just close it back up.
Try again?
Yeah.
Okay. There's my mouse.
I had to restore the system, so that probably is why.
Close it all the way.
I'm gonna blame Microsoft on this one.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Please, everybody, mark yourself present. We have all council members present. Can we rise for the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance?
God of truth, enlighten us now as we meet together so that each of us have a clear understanding of the issues we need to discuss. Give us clarity on our purpose for this meeting and what objectives we should accomplish in this meeting. May these objectives keep us on track, and may they bond us together with a common goal. May these objectives drive each of us to actively participate rather than passively listen. May this meeting be lively and productive, and may the desired outcome be achieved. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any updates to the agenda for tonight?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we do have one update. Tonight, we will be approving the minutes for July 8th, not June 24th. Just want to make that correction.
Thank you. All right, financial reports are up first. We'll receive and file the financial reports. I have a motion from Councilmember Moreno and a second by Councilmember Stang. Any discussion or questions on the financial reports? Please cast your votes. That motion is approved unanimously. And next we have the 2023 audit presentation.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight we have before you the 2023 audit for the city. We do have the Adams Group is who performs our audit for both the city and the SRA. And I have Elliot Maury on there. And so I'm going to let him take over because he can speak to it and answer all of the questions that you have. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you, Teresa, for the introduction. Sorry, this is my first time attending a City of Sheridan meeting. Is it possible if I can share my screen, or would that be productive?
I think they're checking.
We're working on it, Elliot. Hold on.
Okay.
It's just a matter of getting permissions right. Hang on a second.
Alternatively, I can just reference page numbers within the board packet, but sometimes it's helpful if I can kind of point with my cursor just to provide a bit more context.
You should be able to, or should have that permission, Elliot, if you want to try. Yeah.
Alrighty. Okay. Let me just get situated here. All right, so as Teresa said, my name is Elliot Maury. I work for the Adams Group CPAs. We performed the financial statement audit of the city of Sheridan for the year ended December 31st, 2023. So this evening, I'm going to just cover our main audit deliverable and then try to present the financial statements in a relevant level of detail that hopefully is understandable. Before we get into it, I just want to say that governmental accounting standards and statements are not always intuitive. And so if you're flipping through these financial statements and your head starts to spin, you know, I would just consider yourself lucky. That means you're a normal person. So with that, I'm going to go through them. And if you have any questions, please feel free to stop me as we go through. Otherwise, I'd also offer up, you know, after the meeting, if something, you know, pops in your head, I'm definitely available via email or phone call as well. So with that out of the way, I'm going to start out with our main audit deliverable.
Elliot, I hate to interrupt you, but the screen that you're showing us is your Zoom screen, but it's not the presentation screen that we can see. It just shows us your post-attendee Zoom screen.
Sorry about that. Let me try that again.
No worries.
How about now?
Yes, that's perfect.
Okay,
If you don't mind zooming in, that would be great.
Okay, so as I was mentioning, this is our main audit deliverable as your independent auditor. This is templated language. If it were up to me, I would place the paragraphs in a slightly different order. But the gist of it is this. So on the second page of the opinion, it states that management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. So these are agreed upon standards that dictate how transactions should be recorded so that if you pick up the city's financial statements and compare it to another entity, you know that you're comparing apples and apples. Along with that, management's responsible for the design and implementation of internal controls relevant to the preparation of those financial statements. So when we talk about internal controls, we're referring to policies and procedures that are in place, kind of checks and balances to either prevent or detect and correct misstatements of the financial statements, you know, whether due to just human error or potentially misappropriation or something of that matter. So that's management's responsibilities for these statements. our responsibilities as your independent auditor is to obtain an understanding of the city, its internal controls, assessing risks where we think transactions are more likely to be misstated. And then we design audit procedures in response to those risks, and we perform those audit procedures. So those include inquiries of management, inquiries of governance, trend analysis, testing of specific transactions. And ultimately, that allows us to provide our audit opinion. So scrolling back up to the first page, like I said, I think these paragraphs are a little out of order, but again, templated wording. Again, we perform the audit of the city's financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2023. And in our opinion, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects, the activity, in accordance with GAAP. And so, we're providing an opinion in material respects. We're not saying that these figures are down perfectly to the dollar, but, there are no material misstatements. So with that, I'd also point out these statements include not only the activity of the city, which we audited, it also includes the activity of the Sheridan Redevelopment Agency, which the Adams Group also performed the audit of and will be covered in the following session. But it also includes the activity of the Sheridan Housing Authority. That entity was audited by separate auditors, and we're relying on their report, even though the activities rolls into these financial statements. So again, this is our main audit deliverable as your external auditor. With that said, I'd like to jump down to, before we get down to it, there's a section here, the management's discussion and analysis. So this is a memo prepared by Teresa and Pinnacle Consulting Group. And this serves as a good kind of Cliff Notes version of the financial statements. It kind of distills down kind of the key information and figures. And so again, after the meeting, if you want to flip back to it, I think this is a good resource. If you're not looking to, really dive into detail, this is a good starting point. So just wanted to mention that. So now we're getting into the basic financial statements. And the first statement here on page 1 is the statement of net position. So this is kind of like a balance sheet, as it would be referred to in a for-profit setting, but this is a point in time measurement. So as of December 31st, 2023, this is going to list all the assets, liabilities, net position of the city. It'll also break out activity between governmental activities, which is the overwhelming, share of activity, and then business type activities, and then the housing authorities activities. So, at December 31st, 2023, you can see the total cash and investments that were on hand, the capital assets. These are resources that are available to the city and performing its general functions. And then you can also see the liabilities. The main ones outstanding at year end are generally related to the Sheridan Redevelopment Agency. And then the difference between assets and liabilities, generally speaking, here is going to be net position. And you can see there's a deficit here. So that just implies that, the city on kind of a consolidated basis, including in the Sheridan Redevelopment Agency, has more outstanding liabilities than it does have assets. And that's not particularly uncommon, but that's just really related to, the Sheridan Redevelopment Agency's bonds. So this is going to include all assets, both short-term and long-term, all liabilities. So this is really just a comprehensive picture, a snapshot in time of where the city stands at December 31st, 2023. So if I were a council member, this would be one of the most important statements that I would be focusing on. Along with that is the statement of activities. So again, this is going to be a comprehensive entity-wide, including all revenues and expenses, but this is going to be a period of time measurement. So this is for the year ended December 31st, 2023. Again, if it were up to me, I would change the formatting, but this is a standardized presentation method. But on the left-hand side here, we have the expenses kind of broken out by various governmental activities. So the general government, public safety, interest and fiscal charges. These are the expenses of the city, the SRA, and the housing authority. And then there are related revenue streams, associated with those specific activities. And then down below is where kind of the general revenues are coming in. So property taxes, sales and use taxes, investment earnings. And the difference between revenues and expenses is going to be reported here in this change in net position. And so, you know, kind of in an oversimplified manner, you can look and see the city had a change in net position of about $7.5 million. You can think of that kind of like net income. And so, excuse me, you could say that the city's financial position improved during the year ended December 31st, 2023. And when I was preparing for this meeting, I was just comparing the activity here with what was reported in the previous year's financial statements. And a lot of the activity, as you might expect, is relatively consistent. One of the biggest fluctuations that I noticed really is related to investment earnings. And so, of course, inflation and interest rates are in the news. Everybody's, you know, I'm sure sick of hearing about it, but one of the upsides to having higher interest rates is a lot of the city's money is held in kind of a local money market type fund, and it's earning higher interest throughout the year. And so compared to 2022, the city earned over $1 million more in interest and dividends. So that certainly helps cover a lot of expenditures during the year. So just wanted to add in that point. So these first two statements, as I mentioned, are going to include all revenues and expenditures, all assets and liabilities of the government. And then there are separate statements following here that are going to be narrower in scope. So these include all the activity that we just reviewed, but it excludes long-term assets and long-term liabilities. And really kind of what I think the standard setting bodies that dictate how this reporting, you know, is presented is, I think they wanted to show kind of a shorter term measurement, more in line with kind of the annual appropriation procedures of a government. So along with those two previous statements that we just reviewed, there's also these, what we refer to as fund level statements. And, you know, frankly, I don't think it's something that you need to spend a ton of time worrying about, but if you just understand the relationship to the entity-wide statements, then you're a long way there to having a good grasp of what's being reported. One nice benefit of the fund level statements is it takes all that activity and it breaks it down into the various funds. And so these are kind of like cost centers where the general fund is counting for just general, you know, governmental activities. There's a fund for the Shared Redevelopment Agency. There's a debt service fund, you know, which is going to be accounting for collecting property taxes, specifically, you know, being held to be repaying long-term debt. Capital improvements funds are generally held to, you know, accumulate funds for capital expenditures and infrastructure improvements. So the fund level statements provide some additional detail that's not provided on the previous statements that we just reviewed. But again, it also doesn't include all the assets and liabilities of the entity. So, you know, just for reference, you won't see total long-term liabilities included in here. So all the outstanding bonds related to the SRA are not reported on this statement. And I think, again, that's just because a lot of those bonds are expected to be repaid in more than a year. And the standard setting bodies wanted kind of a shorter term measurement just to give kind of an immediate reflection of what's available and what's due. So this is kind of the point in time measurement version of the fund level statements. And there's also another period of time measurement in the fund level format. And then along with that, there are reconciling statements between the two fund level and government wide reporting measurements. So like I said at the outset, governmental accounting statements are not always intuitive, but I just want to try to, you know, explain kind of the architecture of how these statements are flowing. So those are the basic statements. Again, if I were sitting on the council, I would focus on those first two that we reviewed, the statement of net position and the statement of activities. And then down below, after I go through the notes here, there's a couple other statements that show the revenues and expenses compared to budget. And those would be the other statements that I'd focus on. But before we get to those, just want to flip through. They're the notes to the financial statements here. So these notes need to be read in conjunction with, you know, the figures that we just reviewed, just to get a full grasp of what happened during the year. And so Note 1 is just a summary of the significant accounting policies. It just describes kind of what I was talking about, the different measurement focuses. It also describes the SRA and how it rolls into these statements. It describes the major funds, so on and so forth. So this note 1 here will read very similarly year to year, but it provides a lot of good general information. The notes that I would focus on include note 3 here, cash and investments. It provides more detail of, again, so the total asset, the cash and investments that were held at December 31st, 2023 for the city and the SRA. It provides a bit more detail on how they're invested. So like I said, these are Colo Trust and other kind of money market type like funds that are generating more interest and dividends during the year. It talks about, kind of the credit risk profile of those underlying assets, if you're interested in that. The biggest, I think the most important note disclosure is going to be note 5 here, which goes into much more detail of the long-term obligations of the city and the SRA. So in this first table here, it provides a nice roll forward of the beginning balances at the end of 2022, the differences during the year, and the balances at the end of 2023. And it's broken out here between the city and the SRA. And you can see, of $150 million outstanding, the majority of that is related to the Sheridan Redevelopment Agency. And you can see kind of, the payments of principal and interest that were made during the year, and get a bit more detail of that kind of consolidated figure that we reviewed and on the first statement there. And then it'll also include future debt service requirements for those various different tranches of financing. So again, if I were sitting on council, this would probably be the most important note disclosure to me. The next one that I'll just touch base on quickly here is going to be note 8, which describes the pension plans. So the city offers a few different pension plans. Those assets are being invested by FPPA, and so a lot of it's outside of the city's control. But FPPA is going to be forecasting the return on the assets in the pension plan. They're also going to be forecasting the obligations that they're going to have to pay out. I think across the 3 pension plans, they had a net pension liability forecasted right now. So at December 31st, 2023, if in theory all the pension obligations had to be satisfied, there wouldn't be enough assets to cover them. But obviously that's going to be impacted significantly by the future performance of the underlying assets in the pension plan. So a large number of pages in these notes are related to the pension, but it goes into a lot of detail about how those assets are being invested, and then the expected rates of return that are being reported by FPP&A. And yeah, those are the main note disclosures that I would focus on. And then getting down here into the supplementary information, like I mentioned earlier, there's some detail in here that I would focus on. This is the general fund budget to actual. It provides a bit more detail of the revenues and expenses by function. And then it compares that activity to the budget. So I'll zoom in a bit more. And then you can compare activity with the final budget. And so the general fund is going to cover the majority of governmental activities during the year. And you can see down here at the bottom, the change in fund balance was about $1.7 million. So again, kind of the fund balance improved during the year. And then also total expenditures came in under budget. So those are both kind of 2 green lights you want to look for. So this is the general fund. On the following page, it's going to be the same thing, but for the Sheridan Redevelopment Agency. So likewise, you can see a bit more detail. The Sheridan Redevelopment Agency's main expenditure, again, like I've said probably 3 or 4 times now, is going to be related to the debt service. So that's where most of its expenditures are going towards. But regardless, it also had a positive change in fund balance. So, the resources are accumulating during 2023, and likewise, total expenditures came in under budget. So I know I just threw a lot at you guys. And there's a few more schedules here following down, but I don't think they're as important. And And frankly, you know, when I was preparing for this meeting, it's always kind of difficult to tailor the information into a relevant matter. But those are the main statements and note disclosures that I would focus on. So, you know, we provided an unmodified opinion. It's a clean opinion, the best you can receive. Again, that's our main audit deliverable for the year. And overall, I just have good news to report. So.
Thanks, Elliot. It's really helpful, and thanks for pointing out the things to watch for. I know we do have some council members who are a little bit newer, so it's good to have that guidance to help them put things in context and understand where to look this year and next year and going forward when they're reviewing these statements.
Elliot, this is Devin Granbury, City Manager. I just wanted to compliment you on your summary. That was really well done, man. Hey, you know, it can be difficult to do that, and I thought you did a really good job on that and pointing that out. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Does anybody have any questions about the audit? Not seeing any questions here. Okay, and then I forget, do I need to do a motion here? If I can. I can't get back into the meeting again now, so.
We're all kicked out.
Yeah, Mayor, I would recommend a motion to accept the financial report.
Okay.
Well, I'll make a motion to accept the financial report.
The audit, if you could.
Audit.
Thank you. So I have a motion to accept the audit from Councilmember Kelly, seconded by Councilmember Stang. Anybody have any other questions on the audit? Comments? Just want to say thanks also to Teresa. I know, and our management team, you know, I know you have to put a lot of work into answering questions and getting everything updated for the auditors to even review it and making adjustments and that kind of thing. So thank you for all your hard work on that as well.
It is 99.9% Teresa, not me.
Thanks, Teresa. Okay, let's see if we can take a vote here. We'll try the,
Yes, I apologize. My entire computer is frozen.
nice.
I know, Microsoft really got me good today. All right, Councilmember Marino. Stang,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Mayor Butterfloor,
Yes,
Councilmember Whitaker, Lopez, Camacho. That passes unanimously.
thank you. All right, what's up? You're up next. Staff reports.
Perfect. Just a couple of updates. So I'm going to take some vacation time next week and spend, hard to believe, the last week of summer with my kids.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna take some time off, and then I'm gonna let Reagan update you about Institute.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Council. Just wanted to thank you all for the opportunity to spend last week at the Colorado Municipal Clerks Institute. It was a great opportunity, learned a lot, definitely met a lot of cool people. So yeah, it was a great opportunity to continue my education. So thank you guys.
Welcome.
But yes,
Awesome.
that's
Glad you enjoyed it.
yes.
Okay,
That's all I have.
City Attorney, do you have anything for us?
I do, Mayor and Council. Just a brief report. The city manager has asked my office to update and provide a new updated social media policy for the city council. The employee handbook that's before you tonight for formal adoption has an updated policy for employees. But we are going to provide one for you all. And one of the things I've been working on is making sure I'm up to speed on US Supreme Court cases. There were 2 cases that came out in March of this year that I want to make sure I fully reviewed. We've actually prepared a draft of a social media policy for council last year, but those cases had not been decided yet. And the draft we had prepared was in response to prior state legislation on the issue from the Colorado legislature. But now with 2 new decisions, I want to make sure that I have those fully reviewed, and that if we need to address anything in that policy, we've done that. So for the city manager's benefit, who has been very persistently asking us to provide that, I'm hoping to get that to you all in the next month or so, and we'll present that at a council meeting coming up here so that you have a fully up-to-date and fully legally vetted policy for you going forward. So that's my only update this evening.
Thank you. City Manager, anything else for us?
Just one more that I forgot to mention during my update earlier. With the vacancy in our communications director position at the moment, pretty much it's going to be business as usual. We should be fine, except for the newsletter. So we will have, we'll probably be missing a couple months of newsletter, just to let you know. But as far as the rest of the social media and everything, we can keep up. We're doing a lot of that. But the newsletter will have to go on hold for a little bit until we get somebody else on board.
Chief, what's up?
Just a couple of quick things. Thanks to all of you for that attended the car show. It was a great event. Over 250 cars, a lot of good exposure to Sheridan and South Suburban Parks. So thanks again. That's becoming a big favorite for a lot of people. I keep hearing it's their favorite car show and they love Sheridan. So thank you all for the support. And I just want to mention last Friday, we had an event at Target. Commander Jimmy Martinez put together an event. And it was just basically community outreach. And it was really positive. I was talking to Commander about it today, and he was telling me that people would come up and go, "Is this a fundraiser? Do you guys need money?" And they're like, "Nope, we're just waiting on you to have some conversations and good times." So
I see. I'll make a note. PD turns down money.
yeah, that's to the community, Mayor.
Oh,
It's
okay.
not to the council or the city manager. So just to be clear. But it was a great event, and thanks to our partners over at Target, and it just helps us with everything that we do there, especially that's one of the places where we have, of course, a lot of shoplifting, but the relationships are getting even stronger and they love being there. They gave us a gift card that was to buy products to give out to anybody that stopped by. So we had lots of cold drinks and
Nice.
swag and different things to give out. So there's just the positive things that we continue to try to do. And I'm glad Commander Martinez is really on board with wanting to get that done. He's real excited about that. And he has some other ones planned for other places besides Target out there. So if you see us, we're just out there working with the community and not asking for money. So we'll come to you for that. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the minutes of the regular city council meeting of July 8th, 2024. Got a motion from Councilmember Kelly and a second from Councilmember Stang. Any questions or discussion on the minutes? Please cast your votes. Uh-oh.
He doesn't get a vote.
Oh,
I'm stuck. It's just stuck. I need to. Yes.
Wonderful. All right, Councilmember Stang,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Mayor Butterfly,
yes.
Councilmember Whitaker,
Yes.
Lopez,
Yes.
Camacho, and Councilmember Moreno. Passes unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, next we have the consent agenda. Authorized disbursements that have been or will be made from July 1st, 2024 to July 15th, 2024 in the amount of $370,934.79 per the referenced and attached transfer of funds. I have a motion from Councilmember Moreno and a second from Councilmember Stang. Any questions on the consent agenda? Please cast your votes.
Again.
I think you keep breaking it.
Oh my goodness.
Councilmember Kelly,
Yes.
Mayor Butterfly,
Yes.
Councilmember Whitaker,
Yes.
Lopez,
Yes.
Camacho, Moreno, and Stang.
Yes.
It passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next, we have items for individual consideration. We have Resolution 19-2024, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sheridan, Colorado, adopting the revised City of Sheridan Employee Handbook. And I have a motion from Councilmember Whitaker and a second by Councilmember Moreno. Anybody have any questions on the Resolution 19? Okay. Please cast your votes. Maybe. It's so close.
All right, Mayor Butterfly,
Yes.
Councilmember Whitaker,
Yes.
Lopez,
Yes.
Camacho, Moreno, Singh,
Yes.
Kelly.
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you. And next we have Resolution 20-2024, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sheridan, Colorado, approving the Second Amendment to Agreement for Residential Refuse and Recycling Collection Services between the City of Sheridan and Allied Waste Transportation, Inc. I have a motion from Councilmember Stang and a second by Councilmember Whitaker. Anybody have questions or discussion on Resolution 20? Please cast your votes. Come on, Ernie. Nope. Still not there.
All right, I'm gonna start with Councilmember Camacho and see if it just goes.
Yes.
All right, let's see.
All right, that is approved unanimously. Next, we have Mayor's Choice. I don't have too much, but I did see today, I both got an email and saw a post by Mel that the Denver region got a $200 million climate pollution reduction grant from the EPA that's going to be going through DRCOG. So I thought that was pretty exciting news for our region. Anybody have anything for council members' choice? Go ahead,
I do.
Councilmember Whitaker.
Thank you so much for getting those medians highlighted with the yellow lines. It makes a big difference. As I was checking those out, I noticed that this sign over at 7-Eleven has just been mowed down. And just wonder, what is the process for reporting that or getting those fixed?
So that we did have staff check into that. That is a private sign, and we did send code enforcement over to notify and put them 7-Eleven on notice. They need to replace or fix the sign. So it's a private sign, it's theirs, but we've notified them that they need to hopefully do something about that.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And the lights on Oxford that show your speed, that's it. I like that as well. I've noticed a lot of brake lights before they, as soon as they see the flashing speed limit sign. I like that.
I've noticed that too, and I think that they are they weren't quite calibrated at first. Now I think that they are. They seem pretty. I mean, I went by one today and I looked down and it was like, okay,
Yep,
it says the
that's
same
the new
thing.
one.
So I think they're pretty close. So, yeah.
Anybody tested how high they go? No, I'm just kidding.
What's that, Mayor? I'm sorry.
How high do they go?
I don't know.
Mayor, we will still be doing traffic enforcement there. Even though people see those signs, some people will pass them and then they just speed up. I think they might be like our photo radar, and once you pass them, they can go again.
Right.
That's not the intent of those signs, of course. But today I was on there and I saw people just driving faster than they should. So just because the signs are there, it doesn't mean we will abandon doing traffic enforcement there. But it should slow it down because it at least brings it to their attention, and hopefully people will slow down and make it safer. And that's the intent, right? So
Yeah.
we'll be there. Thank you.
I think, was it Andrew or maybe it was you, Devin, who told me that CDOT can get data out of those?
I think they can get counts. I don't think it's a lot of data, but I think they can get traffic counts,
Average speed.
average speed.
So
Okay.
it is recording, like when people are.
Okay. That might, never know when that might come in handy. That's good. to
Oh,
know.
no, that definitely, when we looked at doing, when you're looking at doing transportation grant applications and things like that,
Yeah.
any local traffic data that you have can be very, very useful in grant applications.
Okay. Any other council members have comments or questions? No?
I have one.
Go ahead.
What has been going on at DRCOG last month and a half or 2 months?
Back.
A lot of bills that haven't really been going anywhere with. And basically, the last meeting that we had was about RTD, and a lot of people were not happy about RTD. Basically starting new projects, not finishing the ones that they said that they were going to finish.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest thing that was going on with DRCOG.
Hmm.
And last month they didn't have a meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem.
Anybody else? Okay, then we'll move on to public comment. If there's anyone who'd like to speak to council, 2 minutes per speaker. I don't see anyone, so we'll adjourn this meeting at 7:39 PM. We'll move into the Sheridan Redevelopment Agency meeting. Ernie, you might want to exit and come back in, see if that helps, in case it works again then. I don't know.
I kicked everybody out.
You did? Okay,
Yes.
good.
Restarting it.
Okay, I'm gonna restart mine totally then, because it was trying to go into the new one. Doesn't like anybody tonight. It's being uncooperative.
Why isn't this software more stable?
Hmm.
Okay, the main one is back up.
I'll call to order the Sheridan Redevelopment Agency meeting for July 22nd, 2024. Time is 7:40 PM. Please sign in. Okay, so we have all board members present. First item is the approval of minutes. Minutes of the SRA regular meeting of June 24th, 2024. I have a motion from Board Member Kelly and a second by Board Member Moreno. Any questions or discussion on the minutes? Please cast your votes. Yes, motion is approved unanimously. Next, we have the financial reports. Receive and file our financial reports. I have a motion from Board Member Camacho and a second from Board Member Stang. Any questions on the financial reports? Please cast your votes. Maybe. There we go. That motion is approved unanimously. Now we have the 2023 audit presentation.
All right, since Elliot did such a great job, I'm gonna let him go to it again and walk you through the SRA audit.
Alrighty, I'm afraid that, maybe when I shared my screen last time, that might have been the cause of the software issue. So I don't know if I can just refer to the statements if that would be preferable, but
if you could tell us, what page you were on in our packet, if you have those numbers.
Yeah, sure thing. So on page 17 of the packet is, so I guess before I start, this will be very similar to the previous presentation I just gave, but the difference between the prior session and this one is only obviously the Sheridan Redevelopment Agency, but we also performed a separate audit of Sheridan Redevelopment Agency for the year ended December 31st, 2023. And likewise, this wording here is templated. So again, like I said, I would do these paragraphs in a different order. On page 18 of the packet, page 17 of the packet is the right one. Again, describes management's responsibility for the preparation and fair presentation of financial statements in accordance with those generally accepted accounting principles. They're also responsible for the design and implementation of internal controls. So again, those are those policies and procedures in place to help either prevent or detect and correct misstatements. Our responsibilities as the external auditor is to, obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are free from material misstatements. And we do that by obtaining an understanding of the SRA, its internal controls, assessing risks where we think misstatements are more likely to occur. And then we design our audit procedures in response to those risks, which, some of those procedures include, like I mentioned previously, inquiries of governance, inquiries of management, trend analysis, tests of specific transactions, and then that ultimately allows us to provide our audit opinion, which is back on page 17. And again, like I mentioned, we performed the financial statement audit for the year ended December 31st, 2023. In our opinion, these financial statements are free from material misstatements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And so this is an unmodified or a clean audit opinion, and it's the best audit opinion that you can receive. So again, this is our main audit deliverable as your external auditor. So all the financial statements included in this packet were included in the city's packet. But again, I'll just do kind of a high level. If you want to go into more detail, just please feel free to tell me to slow down. But on page 27 of the packet, again, this is that statement of net position, a point in time measurement. So as of December 31st, 2023, that's going to be reporting the total assets and the total liabilities of the SRA. Once again, like I mentioned previously, that the total liabilities exceed the total assets that are available, and those are related to the outstanding bonds related to the redevelopment project. The difference between the two is a deficit in net position, but over time, as the SRA collects, sales taxes each year and starts paying off that debt, eventually, the liabilities figure is going to continue to decrease over time. And then, hopefully in the future, the net position will be a positive figure. But this is a point in time measurement. At the end of the year, you can see, all the assets, long-term and short-term, all the liabilities, short-term and long-term of the SRA. On page 28, again, this is the statement of activities. So this is for the year ended. So it's a period of time measurement. Not as much going on as the city. So the majority of the SRA's activities are really going to be related to kind of servicing the outstanding debt, but it does have, some general government activities still going on. And on the bottom right-hand side, you can see the general revenues that were collected during the year. So, it's, majority sales tax, but also tax increment financing and public improvement fees. And it had a change in net position of about $6.1 million. So kind of an oversimplified analysis, but the SRA's financial position improved during the year. So that's, a healthy financial indicator. And likewise, these statements have this government-wide measurement, including all activity, and then it has the narrower in scope fund level activity measurement. So on page 29, you can see the two funds for the SRA. This is a period in time measurement. So there's the general fund, and then the majority of the activities in the debt service fund. So the majority of the assets are going to be cash and investments, and then taxes receivable. And then you won't see the outstanding liabilities on this fund measurement, again, because the majority of those outstanding bonds are due, more than a year in advance, generally speaking. If we jump down to page 31, this is going to be the fund level presentation of the period of time measurement. So same thing again, we have the general fund and debt service fund column, and you can see the revenues and expenditures during the year and see that change in fund balance, kind of like net income, if you will. Both of the funds had positive change in fund balances. So that provides a bit more detail, but like I mentioned, both, similar to the city's financial statements, there will be supplementary schedules that we'll get to that'll have the same detail compared to budget, which I would probably spend more time focusing on. Beginning on page 33 of the packet are the notes to the financial statements. So these will look pretty similar to the city as well. Note 1 just covers the summary of the significant accounting policies, kind of general information about the SRA and its reporting measurements and so on and so forth. So a lot of that wording will be similar year to year. Similar to the city, the most important note disclosures, in my opinion, are going to be related to note 3, kind of the cash and investments on hand, and that note starts on page 38. But really the most important note disclosure for the SRA is going to be related to the long-term debt, which is on note 4, beginning on page 41 of the packet. And, you know, it has that same summary roll forward where you can see the outstanding bonds at the beginning of the year and what was paid down during the year and what's outstanding at the end of the year. One thing I guess I might point out that I didn't mention on the city statements is the SRA has Series A bonds that carry a floating rate of interest. And those are hedged with an interest rate swap. And during the year, with the increase in interest rates, the city actually started receiving money on that interest rate swap, whereas in years past, it was making net interest payments out on the swap. So that's kind of one unique change, I guess, compared to prior years. But otherwise, like we covered a lot of this in the city statements already. These will not have, let's see here. Yeah, these don't have the pension footnote. The SRA doesn't have pension obligations specifically. So I'm going to jump down to page 51 of the packet. So this is going to be that budget to actual schedule for the general fund. And you can see, you know, the revenues that were brought in and the expenditures that were made. And likewise, the expenditures came in under budget. There was a positive change in fund balance. So those are kind of little indicators that you can look at from year to year. On the following page 53 of the packet is going to be the budget to actual for the debt service fund. So similarly, the expenditures came in under budget, and then there was a positive change in fund balance. So those are the main schedules that I would focus on, like I mentioned. And I'm not sure if there are any questions about the SRA specifically.
Anybody?
No.
See a lot of no's. Looks like we're good. Thank you again, Elliot. I appreciate your overview. Okay. Well, looks like I have a motion from Board Member Stang and a second from Board Member Whitaker to approve the audit. Please cast your votes.
Not working down on that side. Councilmember Lopez. Board Member Lopez, my apology.
Are we doing a voice vote or are you asking how he's doing?
We'll move to a voice vote.
Okay.
Oh, we got one. Hang on. Board Member Camacho? Nope. Nope. Okay. All right. Board Member Moreno?
Yes.
Stang?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Chairperson Bob Butterfly, that's
It's a mouthful. It's okay. Yes.
Board Member Whitaker,
Yes.
Lopez,
Yes.
Camacho. That passes unanimously.
Thank you. Okay. Next, we have the approval of disbursements, authorized disbursements for July 2024 in the amount of $153,510.06 that have been or will be made for expenses referenced below. 1, legal expenses, none. Other professional services, $9,439.96. City support services, $143,301. Other expenses, $769.10. A motion from Board Member Kelly, a second by Board Member Moreno. Any questions or discussion on the disbursements? Please try to cast your votes. All right, that's passed unanimously. We have no resolution, so we have new business, our Pinnacle report for May of 2024.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for approving the audits tonight. That has been a lot of work and I thank everyone involved. So, and especially Elliot and the Adams Group, they did a lot of hard work on their side too. So, as far as looking at the Pinnacle report, as far as the new retailers, I think Andrew did a wonderful job of covering everything that's on there. So, I'm just going to kind of leave that there. The pledge revenues continue to be higher. We've got year to date higher of 10%, so that's always good. The one thing that we did note that we're trying to find a little more information is the Con store has a closing sign on it. So we're trying to find a little more information from Kimco on when that's going to happen and is there a new tenant available. So hopefully more to report next month at that SRA meeting. So continuing compliance, we don't have anything to report. All of our reports are going to be due over the next 3 weeks. We have to file all of our audits and quarterly compliance. So we'll be getting all that done. And then as soon as Elliot finalizes the audits, we will get those submitted to the state. So and then we'll be starting on budget. So
Start all over.
so did anybody have any questions?
No, thank you, Teresa. Appreciate it.
Mayor, I might just mention, just for
Yes.
council's information with cons, with the way that they operate, they don't generate a lot of revenue for the SRA down
Right.
out of that center. So if they do close, that is not going to have a significant financial impact to the SRA.
Okay, so maybe we can get a retailer in there who does more sales.
Something that had more just straight
Yeah.
retail sales tax would be fantastic.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you all for your attendance and your attention tonight. And we're adjourned at 7:55.